So you can take a seat that's yours to be at ease in for the next several minutes for centering, chanting, and a little bit of pranayama to start. You're welcome to close your eyes. And know that based on the discussion we were just having, I'm planning on helping you to find those shapes to the spine and the diaphragms in the body so you can experience the pranayama also more easily. As you're taking your seat here and you're arriving, the word asana means to take your seat or to establish your seat. So bring your attention down actually into your seat. The pelvis, the sitting bones, tailbone, pelvic floor, the outer hips. And when you sense your actual seat, the physical seat, imagine also the internal seat, the place that you take refuge, where you come back to center, where you kind of tap into your root, like root wisdom, or we could say earth wisdom. And then when you imagine the breath going down to touch that root wisdom, imagine it a little bit like when the water is soaked into the soil and goes down to the roots where the trees are nourished. You're listening to the sound of kittens attacking blankets here. So if it sounds like kitten claws, that's what that is. Yeah. Well, from the sense of your own root, please rise up through your spine. And let's imagine that when you're rising up, like from the pelvic floor up towards the sternum or the midsection is like the trunk of the tree. And then up into the lungs and the chest and heart is like the leaves of the tree, the branches on the leaves. And so up at the top of the sternum and the collarbones would be like above there is the open sky. And knowing how precious it is that we live on a planet that has oxygen, that is breathable for us, that sustains us, and that the trees are a part of that process. Let's keep this image in our practice this afternoon. And bring your hands to your heart in Anjali Mudra. And we'll chant the Gayatri mantra together. Let's begin. Om Bhurva Suvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata Om Bhurva Suvah Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona
prachodayata. Om Bhuvasva Tatsavitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yona Prachodayata. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Shri Guru Pyo Namaha Hari Om.
With your exhale, you may bow your head to your heart. Also, you can have a sense you're bowing the mind to the branches and the leaves of the trees, the lungs, this process of being breathed. And release your hands. Please open your eyes. And I would like you to have a couple of blocks and a chair and a couple of blankets for class today. And I'm going to go actually promptly down to the other camera. I'm going to go down to the floor behind me. So Stevie, you can let me know how this is for you with your lungs in recovering some lung capacity. Pardon me as I have to squish a cat to move my physio ball. The kitten is quite squishable, so she just moved out of the way. Okay, so I'd like you to set up like we did yesterday when we were starting that early morning class. I know that you weren't all there, so let me show. You need a chair like this, and then 2 blocks. So when you set up the blocks, one is going to be flat for the shoulder blades and one is going to be medium for your head. The proximity of your blocks to the chair is going to be based on your arm length and your flexibility and the kind of chair that you're using. So I can't say for that proximity, you actually have to research it. So we'll place the upper back on the blocks, the first block, and then the head on the second block. And then you're going to be checking for yourself. If you reach the arms overhead underneath the chair, are you someone who can reach the legs back there? You may have to bring the chair closer like I just did. You can hold the bar of the chair. You could hold the legs of the chair. You could go above the seat of the chair and hold the upper corners of the arms of the chair like this also. The choice you're going to make should help you with a sense of breathability. It may be delicious to have a nice opening for the upper back, chest, and shoulders, but whatever choice you're making should be both delicious and breathable. And breathable, I should say first, and then delicious second. I don't want you to go past the breathability threshold in the choice that you're making. And then bring your awareness down into the breath. And let's imagine again that at the pelvic floor is like the roots. And your job is to sort of water the roots with the beginning of the inhale. And come up through the trunk of the tree, up into your chest and heart, the branches, the leaves, the process of exchanging O2 and CO2. And during the exhale, let the mind release any unnecessary sort of thought clusters, radio broadcasts, mental dust bunnies, the Ferris wheel of the mind. You could imagine that release during the exhale, a little bit like reducing pollution, right? Like air pollution, but it's mind pollution. so that the next inhale that comes, you actually have a greater sense of its capacity to nourish. Let's do one more breath in, please. And then when you exhale, release your arms from that position overhead and take them out into a T shape. And see if the back of your elbows, the back of your forearms, the backs of your hands can reach the floor. And notice what's happening now in the simple breathability of your body. You're not trying to breathe right now, only noticing that the breath continues. And then you can either roll to your side or come forward and up to sitting and take the first block now to be medium and the second block to be tall. And lay back on the first block so that the first edge of the first block is at the bottom corners of your shoulder blades. The second block is going to go under your head towards the base of your skull. And then reach your arms overhead once again. And you might find that you're holding at the same spot on the chair or you're holding a little bit higher. This is a larger back bend for the spine. And my hope is that we can practice releasing from where the floating ribs are, releasing down into the abdomen. So let's take the inhale to touch lightly first at the pelvic floor, maybe towards the tailbone. And then the breath up through the trunk of the body. So you can think of that as sacrum, lumbar spine, thoracic, and up into the heart and the lungs, where you imagine the branches and the leaves. And when you exhale, visualize a release just underneath the rib cage, flowing down, the release of tension in your diaphragm, in the organ system, in the stomach, liver, spleen. And now, if this is breathable for you, you're going to take the block that's on the tall setting under your head and put it down to the medium setting. That's going to open your throat a little bit more, so your posture is going to be changing. Reach your arms overhead once again. And check the quality of breathability another time here. Notice on the exhale, permission to release just under the rib cage, right there along the floating ribs, front and back. And then you can either stay as you are or release the block down to the flat setting under your head and just enjoy a few more breath cycles. It's really based on your flexibility and your breathability, and I'm asking you not to bypass the breathability part. And then release your hands and arms. It's going to be helpful now if you had put your head back on the low setting or the medium setting, raise the block back up to the tall setting. That's an easier place from which to dismount the pose. So you've got your head up then higher than your heart. Place your hands, palms face down under your hips, and stretch one leg out straight, raise up to sitting. Because we're already set here, let's put this block now on the flat setting. Take a seat on it and bend your right knee up to your chest like this. Okay, raise your right arm as you cross your left hand to your right shin. And then exhale and twist to your right. And use the upper part of the chair, the back of the chair seat there. Now not under the chair, but on top of it. As you're rotating in the twist, acknowledge that now your spine is upright. So when you were in a back bend, you had a different relationship to the diaphragm and the floating ribs. So try to sense now the inhale begins at the pelvis again, comes up through like the trunk of the body and up into the heart. And the exhale, you can imagine tone beginning at the pelvic floor and moving upwards along the front line of the spine. And then with an exhale, let's rotate around to face forward. Okay, change sides, so bring your left knee up and take your right leg out. Wrap your right hand to your left shin. Inhale, raise your left arm high. And then exhale, rotate around to your left. Let's use the support of the arms to keep the inner body spacious and the infrastructure, the bones of your body, stable. So then the breath has room to explore. And then with an exhale, please come around to face forward. And now let's put the soles of the feet together since we're here. You're seated up on your block. So you've been in a back bend, a twist. Now we're going to come down to a forward bend. Walk your hands forward. If you prefer to sit on two blocks side by side, that of course is totally fine. Notice the change of shape in your torso and the influence that has with the breath. Luxuriate in the opportunity to feel this, because it's truly different what happens in the musculoskeletal body now in flexion. Where does the breath feel like it can move? What happens to the leaves of the tree branches in the chest and lungs? And then walk your hands back towards your ankles, please, and rise up to sitting. Bring your knees up to center. And now notice that for me, I'm right here at the edge of my chair. And this is a metal chair. Most of you are going to want padding for your chair because it's metal. You can put a blanket on the chair seat. I recommend that the blanket is not folded so thickly that it's awkward or likely to fall off of your chair. The blanket should be able to mold to the chair. Okay, so then the upper back is right there. I would like it so that your shoulder blades are at the edge of the chair. So for some of you, you're taller than I am, or your torso is longer than mine, or your chair is shorter than mine. And it's possible that your block and your hips have to move out away from the chair to make this fit. And then we're going to pick up the hips. Place your hands to hold the seat of the chair behind your head. Step your feet out. So you're in reverse table pose on a chair in your yoga practice. And the lumbar spine should not feel too curved. I want you to see that you're lengthening the tailbone towards the knees. So don't lift your chest so high that you feel like the hips are dragging behind. And inhale, keep the elbows in towards the midline, not splaying apart. And start to slowly melt your hips down towards the floor without sliding your shoulder blades off of your chair. I'm going to say that those words are in bold and italic. Do not slide the shoulder blades off the seat of the chair. You're going to keep the shoulder girdles really stable, keep the upper arms and elbows stable. Your head and, in fact, your neck and voice tone should all be stable. What you're lowering is where the chair touches below the shoulder blades and down into your lower thoracic, lumbar, and sacrum. It is not important that your hips reach the block. You can imagine the lower spine like a slinky, but the upper spine and the thoracic region very stable. Now, keeping the shoulder blades on the chair seat, press into your heels. Inhale, raise your tailbone towards your knees. Come up to your upside down table pose. Reach back now to hold your head with your hands. And as you're going to tip your torso back down so your hips find your block, use your belly muscles to pull yourself up and take the arms over the knees. And bow your head so that the spine comes again into flexion. Notice where the breath wants to be now. You have a little bit of compression from the thighs against your front body. So what happens in the back body? And then press yourself up to Uttanasana. So roll forward and down with the torso. And notice again the changing shape of the breath in the body. This is a great time to notice your exhale because this is the first time in this sequence that your lungs are truly upside down. And of course, that depends on how forward your forward fold is, but there is an inverted quality to the lungs here. And then shift your hands to your hips and please rise up to standing. Come up to mountain pose. Place your feet to their hip distance apart, let the arms relax. Notice it's like a whole new day. You just cleaned the pollution of the mind. Let's take this blanket now and both blocks. Please put the two blocks side by side. And you won't quite know where to put them until you test drive this, but I would like you to have the blocks padded with the blanket. And check for yourself if you're going to have your right foot forward and your left knee on the support, like in a pose called Asana. What distance do you need to have for your chair, your front foot, your back shin, your back knee? What is the distance that you need there? And also check that you're able to step over that little hurdle. This is like track practice from high school. And then once you have it set, what I'd like you to do is step backwards to chair dog pose. So in chair dog, let's put the hands on the sides of the chair seat as well as you can, but with stability. And then squeeze your triceps in towards your nose. So you're rotating your arms where the biceps roll up towards the ceiling. The reason for that is I want your shoulder blades to widen across the back of your body. And then see if the breath might come up into the back hemisphere of the lungs, like the leaves on the back side of the trees are also breathing. And then pressing down against the chair seat, tippy toe, step your right foot forward, left knee down to the blankets. With your fingers on the chair seat, press down, like we often do with the 2 blocks. And as you press down, lift the inner belly inward and upward. Root your tailbone down, and then please raise your arms. Of course, only if you have your balance. And notice the breathability of your body here. And this shape you have right now with your torso, your hips, your arms, we've been in this shape already today. Notice what it feels like when it's upright. And then let's exhale, make a wide circle of the arms. And going back to an earlier practice in November and early December, place your fingers, turn your palms down, the heels of the hands down. Roll your shoulders back. Squeeze your elbows back, please. As you pull down with your hands, lift up with your inner body. And then we're going to exhale to release, reach back to hold the chair seat. Use it firmly for this transition, please. Straighten your left leg. Step your right foot over the hurdle. And then put your hands kind of sideways on the chair as well as you can. Of course, it depends on what kind of chair you're using. Yeah. And then press down with your toes, raise your heels and step your left foot over. Touch your right knee down. Raise up to your fingertips on the chair seat. Encourage your hips to come forward while the tailbone goes down, down and forward. Lift the inner belly and then raise your arms. As you're reaching up, notice the inspiration part of the cycle. That word inspire means to breathe in spirit actually. And then exhale, big circle of the arms. Let's try this kind of upside down position for the hands again. So place your fingers, roll your elbows and shoulders back, and then the palms can pull down at the back of your pelvis. Raise up through your heart. And keeping the shoulders snug back now. Release your arms and then let the shoulders relax as you place your hands on the chair. Use it thoughtfully to step backwards to dog pose. So press into your right toes, step your left foot back over that hurdle. And then lower both knees down to the blanket. So you're sitting up pretty high with the 2 blocks on the blanket. Can you squat so that your toes are tucked under there and the knees maybe parallel to the floor and the torso perpendicular to the thighs? Those were all back bends, right? That's back bending, back bending. Even in that dog pose, there's a thoracic back bend. So now I'd like you to roll the knees up and take them out to the side a little bit and come over. So stay on your toes. You don't need to get your heels to the floor. Walk your hands forward and let the torso round. This pose is called Malasana. Malasana, like the word mala. It's also in English called garland pose. So the word mala and the word garland are related. To move this closer to what we call garland pose or malasana, now take the arms under. So you take the arm under your shin, put your palm face up, take the other arm under the shin, palm face up, and you bow your head. Now to really do malasana or garland pose, you would wrap your arms under your shins, around the outer hips, and you clasp the hands at the small of your back. But I would need to dislocate my shoulders, elbows, and wrists to show you that. You're noticing the shape of the back body. I'm going to ask you to roll now forward and place both knees back on the two blankets. So you are once again squatting and you have like a little lap right here. The kittens fell asleep, otherwise they'd probably be on my lap. Let's reach forward towards the chair seat. Okay, press down into your knees, roll up like you're going to table, and then make this into plank pose. And reach back for one more downward dog pose with your chair. And thoughtfully step one foot forward over your hurdle, then the other foot forward, and rise up to mountain pose, Tadasana. When you come to stand in mountain pose, feel again, if your body was housing the body of a tree, you have this root, this trunk, important for sending information up and down inside the lungs, the branches and the leaves, and above that, the open sky. Good. So now I'm going to turn my blankets so I can keep facing you. Like this, please. And I'm going to ask you to put both knees on the blankets one more time. And from where you are, let's keep the left thigh vertical, straight down, and step your right foot out to the side. So you have this kind of box shape right here between your right shin, left thigh, and the blocks. Try to make the hips level so you can kind of check that right there. And press your right knee open. You may have to stretch the inner right thigh here to do that. You can imagine the root system includes now this root out through the right thigh. You know how roots go in search of the nutrients, the water, the stability that the tree needs. And slide your right hand down and down. Brace your right arm against your right inner knee and shin. Rotate your chest and heart to your left. So this is really the first side bend in your practice this afternoon. So start noticing the side bend in your left hip, left outer hip, left side waist. And then raise your left arm. Yeah, beautiful. Just to the extent that you can, right? Make it breathable before you're making it flexible. In other words, don't reach for extra flexibility when what you're really addressing first is the breathability. And changing the platform that you're doing the pose on may give you access to new sensations in your body. Keep the tailbone rooted, please, so your left thigh remains stable. And then raise your left arm up, reach to the left side of your room. Release your left arm down. And step your right knee in and your left foot out. Let me change my setup a little bit. So step your left foot out to the side. Check again that your hips are going to be really more or less they're level. Your pelvis is level. Your thigh may not be horizontal to the floor because we're up on a little platform, but can the hips be level? Having the hips level is going to increase the benefit of this side bend. Because if this hip was already hiked up, you wouldn't have the same beginning to your side bend. Okay, press the left arm out into your left shin. And then you may choose to raise your right arm up. And listen to the way the breath moves through, like the inner belly, right? You can think of it like inside the ilium bone, inside the inner basin of the pelvis, and up along the back of your waist, the side of your waist. Maybe you're like a willow tree right now, this gentle arc to the side. Let's keep the right thigh strong. The right butt muscle should be engaged right now. And open your right arm. You're clearing the sky of the mind. Rise up. And then step your left knee and your left foot down. And come down to kind of squatting with the knees supported, also called toe balance. If you want to actually toe balance, you can pick your knees up off of the blankets and just see how much balance you have in your toe balance pose. I have really strong toes, but not very flexible toes. I also have very stable ankles, which means they're not very flexible. The rest of my body is pretty flexible, so I have to keep my stability. Where you have stability, you want to be mindful to increase some mobility. Where you have a lot of mobility, you want to be mindful to increase some stability. Okay, now let's see what it's like to have what I was talking about yesterday's class had this inversion. So how can we explore that together here? Let's have, please, 2 blankets, 2 blocks, and your chair, and your concentration, your willingness to follow instructions. And if you are having your menstrual cycle, this is not your pose today. You can go to Supta Baddha Konasana to have restoration time. Otherwise, you take your 2 blankets and open them from the storage fold. And place them so that they are on the floor. You have to be willing to, you kind of have to mold the blankets here at some point in this process, because this length for some of you is going to be too long, like it is for me, for those 2 blocks to go under my pelvis. So one of the things I'm going to have to do is be able to have the blocks come in here with my blanket shortened in its length this way. Now, a solution for that doesn't require fiddling when you're in position. If this is too long for you, the solution is this. You open this, you fold it in half so it's the same thickness But if you check this out here, this is a different dimension for this part of the blanket fold. And that means that my blocks are going to have an easier time getting placed here. And I put one block to each side to get ready. Okay, and where you're going to be lying down, your hips are going to be in this little hole right here to get started. And your shoulders will be here, and your feet are going to end up here. So we go like this. You place your right shoulder on the blanket where you're going to want it to be. And then you lie on your back. And you are willing to be awkward for a few moments. You can be willing to be awkward for hours if you want to practice being awkward. But right here, you see the shoulder is at the edge of the blanket, not past the blanket, but about an inch between the top of the shoulder and the edge of the blanket. And then I take my two blocks and I place them stack under my pelvis. And I can hold the legs of the chair with my hands. So the amount of weight now on my head and shoulders is lessened because the blocks are supporting my hips and pelvis. You also have this feeling here like bridge pose, camel pose, bow pose, back bend pose. So you really want to be up on these two blankets well enough that your shoulders not only tuck under, but you can strengthen them as you press your shoulders down. Now I put my blocks one flat and then one medium. So my blocks are nearly the same height as the seat of the chair. And then you can pick up the feet. And this is called Candlestick Pose. Your lungs are upside down. The pelvic floor experiences this as a mild inversion, since the hips aren't completely over the torso. The lower abdomen can experience this as a kind of waterfall or a little drainage from the pelvis towards the mid-abdomen, towards the solar plexus, or towards the fire, the samana vayu. Your gaze is in towards your heart, and the throat vayu is closed and inward. And your heart can puff open like a little parachute in the heart. Notice the breathability in the torso, particularly what's happening in the region below your belly button, in the pelvic basin, near to the pubic bone, and deep in near to your sacrum. Simply lightly touch your toes and your feet down to the chair. Now, one of the benefits of our setup is this. Press into the chair with your feet, lift your hips, and put one block to the side, only one block. So you have a block there to come down to, which means your hips won't be in that deficit where they were before. And I'd like you to scoot back just very slightly until your shoulders fall off the blanket, but your hips stay on the block and your head is on the floor. Just let the shoulders go off the back side of the blanket. If it's comfortable for where you are on your block, you can encourage the knees to come in towards the chest. Use your abdominal muscles to help with that. Do not use the arms or the hands for this purpose today. And then lightly touch your feet to the chair seat and scoot yourself back a little bit further until you're going to have the top of your sacrum at the last edge of the blanket. Okay, so there you're going to have, when it's the sacrum on the blanket, your thighs will be less than vertical. The feet have to go forward to the chair. Notice what happens here across the lower abdomen. And if you're dexterous with your feet, you go like this. You pull the chair in. But if you have a really heavy chair or it's awkward, please don't tip the chair onto your face. One of the benefits of the folding metal chair is that it's not that heavy. And then please come to Shavasana. Let's let your body integrate. In Shavasana, you want to let the integration be like most natural. You're not trying to make it happen. Part of your duty in Shavasana is actually to surrender. Invite your mind to deeply rest. You were resolving mental dust bunnies. Don't let them come back now, please.
Again, welcome yourself to deeply, deeply rest. The renewal that brings you back to your essential nature. Also back into your communion with nature, with all that is. Allow your mind to drop in a little deeper. One more minute of quiet resting, please. Without disturbing your mind, just welcome a little gentler inhale. Exhale. Tone your seatbelt muscles, the muscles across your lower lap, and float your knees towards your chest and down to your side. And then rise up to sitting, the seat that you might use for meditation. Please bring your hands to your heart. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste. Thank you for being here. I will come up closer so I can find out how you're doing. What is the feeling tone now for you in the mind?